being a little past 6 p.m., we'll go ahead and call the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to order for September 21st, 2021. The county clerk has confirmed the roll, and we do have a quorum this evening. So the first items on the agenda are the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Supervisor Powers. If you could please all join in standing with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the invocation by Supervisor Powers.
Creator of all people and of all the animals which live with us, we come to you seeking your blessing on our work tonight. In honor of our new county dog park, we pray to you, look upon the companion animals which share our homes and our lives and which show us a love and loyalty few people can surpass. Bless them for the pleasures and companionship that they give, and protect all of those creatures which suffer cruelty and neglect. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next item on the agenda is a motion to adopt this evening's agenda. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Albrecht.
I move to adopt this evening's agenda.
There's a motion and a second to adopt this evening's agenda. Any discussion or changes? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. And that motion carries. So moving on down to the next item. That's an item during each meeting in which we give an opportunity for the public to speak for under any item under county jurisdiction or any item on the agenda this evening. So first, before I start, I wanted to let you know that I was reached out to by several individuals over the last 24 hours about one concern about something potentially on this agenda. And I just wanted to clear the air before we even got started, because I heard it from at least 3 or 4 individuals. There was concern that there was something on the agenda about vaccine mandates. And I can assure you there is nothing on the agenda at all whatsoever about vaccine mandates, whether a resolution or a discussion this evening. So I wanted to make sure everyone knew that, because once again, I was called multiple times about it and received multiple emails about it, and there is just nothing true about any discussion or agenda item related to vaccine mandates. So I just want to make sure that everyone was all on the same page about that this evening. And with that, we'll go ahead and open it up. I'd ask anyone who wishes to speak this evening to state their name and address for the record, and please try to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. Like we've done when we've done these hybrid before, we'll start with those in person first, allow all individuals who are present in person to speak, and then once we're finished with that, we'll move to any individual who might be interested to speak from the public on Zoom. So I'll open it up. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak this evening? If so, please go ahead. You can step to the mic, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Chris Ullman, 626 Jackson Street, Neenah, Wisconsin. I would like to thank you all for what you do, but something came up and I wanted to speak about it. What happened to saving up for things? I don't understand why this borrowing of money, when my husband and I needed a new vehicle, we saved up for it and also saved up for the maintenance for that vehicle, and we paid cash for that vehicle. That is being fiscally responsible. No matter what the interest rate is, borrowing millions of dollars and putting the businesses and taxpayers, further into debt is fiscally irresponsible, especially when you are not including any maintenance fees for future repairs and upkeep. Therefore, I do not consent to the borrowing of any money, especially for $1 million. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Please, if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yep. My name's Christine Whitty. I live in Oshkosh.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I just wanted to speak about the same thing. My concern about that $4 million loan request, that is, quote, "for the purpose of paying the cost of constructing, remodeling, demolishing, and improving parks, facilities, buildings, and sites, and acquiring and installing furnishings, fixtures, and equipment." Under the project, I don't guess that must be one total project, it sounds like, I don't know, and there are insufficient funds. Then also it stated, there be and there hereby is levied on all the taxable property in the county a direct annual tax in such years and in such amounts as are sufficient to pay when due the principal and interest on the notes. So I looked at some of the reports to try to get a little bit more information. I'm starting to learn that there's actually more information. I don't have to ask so many questions, but then it kind of brings up a few more questions. So according to the Baird report, it's my understanding that this will be paid back in the next 15 years by our taxes. It would be great to have an idea of what it would cost each of our, each of us as property owners. I just feel like there's a lot of tax burden that's being placed on my property. At 68 years old, we're still paying for our house. We're still paying for the road work that was done in front of our home. There's no increase in Social Security, which I'm not asking for or expecting. So I'm just wondering, how much burden does the county think that we can handle? Some of us are kind of stuck at a certain pay rate. My husband's 71 and he just took on a second part-time job. And we're not living beyond our means. It's just been a tough couple years. So I'm just wondering also if there are other existing debts that are going on that the county is paying for in addition to this. I'm just wondering why those can't be paid off before we incur more debts, like the lady was saying, being fiscally responsible. But I also understand there are things that I don't know and don't understand, but I wanted to ask that question. I just wish that the county could pick a few projects at a time, finish paying for them, and just do what's being needed as, by prioritizing. And then I thought that I heard last spring that there was a big surplus. I don't remember the amount, but I thought it was kind of huge. And I'm wondering what happened to that, if that's still a surplus still there, where did it go? So if there's a surplus, why are we borrowing money? Just because the rates are low? Okay, I guess I could try that too. I don't know how it would work out for me financially, because it's all got to be paid back. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Engelbert, and I'm the Assistant Director at East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, which is 400 Onab Street, Menasha. I am just speaking about Resolution 213, which is making amendments to our Articles of Organization for the Commission, specifically relating to the structure of our Commission. This is an item that our Commission has discussed over the last 2 years. Currently, our structure consists of 36 commissioners from our 8 member counties, and we are in the midst of a reorganization plan as a commission where we're refocusing our priorities on our core program areas. One of the items for discussion for our commission was looking at their structure and are we in line with other structures of regional planning commissions around the state. There's a feeling that we weren't, and part of this is relating to the gubernatorial appointments that are on our commission. I think we're one of only 2 regional planning commissions that have gubernatorial appointees, and our commission feels that those positions are hard to fill through the governor's office. It's a very time-consuming process and wants to take a look at a different structure for the commission. So what's before you is a proposal to change the structure of the commission from 36 members to 31. What that consists of is a removal of 8 gubernatorial appointments, 1 from each of our counties, and then also an addition of 3 county board members from our smallest counties so that each county at least has 3 members serving on the commission. Without those gubernatorial appointments, our smallest counties would have been left with only 2 members. And so this item is required to be presented to all of our counties, and also needs to get approval of 2/3, or at least a majority of our communities, consisting of at least half the population throughout our region, in order for this change to occur. The change has already been voted on and approved by our commission, our steering committee, and the commission as a whole. So that's why we're here tonight with this resolution, is to make this change, get the resolutions from our counties. Then what we would do is proceed with contacting our communities about passing resolutions of their own to officially make the change to our commission structure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak this evening? And if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Ann Marshall. Whoops, I'll get that later. I'm Ann Marshall. I live at 2710 Bowen Street in Oshkosh, and I'm here to speak about the supervisory district plans that you're going to be looking at this evening. I live in Oshkosh, so I'm most familiar with the southern end of the county, which, and I don't pretend to know about Nina Menasha and Foxcroft Crossing, so I'm focusing on those. Either plan, 3 or 1, certainly meets the needs for me in my district. It's all now city people than it wasn't before, and we're a good cohesive group following the guidelines that the districting asks for. The only question I really want to bring up right now is not a question, but I would hope, I was unable to attend the public hearing. I would hope, looking at both of these, that you could explain to the public why District 12 looks the way it does, and why it's got areas spread around in the Oshkosh area. I realize that that has to do with the long-term township, but for instance, you can't get through Furno Road because you run into some town properties. But if you could explain that, that would help for people to understand the rather interesting configuration of that. So otherwise, I approve. Both of them seem fine to me. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Please, and if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Sidney Opperman, 4608 County Road E, Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
I want to thank you guys again for the work you guys do and the time you guys put in. Last informational meeting, you guys were talking about a secret vote. So I don't exactly know what that means. If you guys vote on the districts and then you're going to pick which one is got the most votes, and that's who you guys are going to pick. I think you guys need to decide actually on either number 1 or number 3, and not go with the secret vote, because what I understand when you said secret vote last time we had this meeting about the districting, that means you guys will vote and we as the public would not know who voted for what plan, either 1 or 3. And in my mind, I think if you guys vote tonight on which one you guys want to go forward with, I would prefer to see number 3. So there again, with the other people that come up here just before me and asked about some questions, I just want to remind them that you can come here and speak your piece on this stuff, but I would recommend that you would go to the committee meetings where where you can get more answers from what's going on or what they're proposing, like with the $4 million park thing that's going on. I think for the public to understand that is you actually need to go to the meetings, the committee meetings, and educate yourself on why they're doing it. And then you can get a one-on-one with the supervisors that are on that committee, because the way our government works in Winnebago County is them 5 supervisors that are on that committee, which would be for that $4 million for the parks. They're going to make the decision to take that loan out or to decline it. And if you want to voice your opinion, you should voice it to them on that committee. And nobody ever shows up at these committee meetings. Very few. When I went, there's only maybe one person. But that is the best way to move forward. It's a slow ball to get it rolling, but that's the best place to start on if you have problems with something. So with that said, I thank you guys all again for your support and your help in our county.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Please, if you could state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Richard Bast, 51 Cherry Park Court, Oshkosh.
Thank you.
I was unaware of anything about a secret vote, but I was thinking before I came out here that for redistricting, that is a very important decision to make. As you know, it happens every 10 years, and I would like to ask for a roll call vote on this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening? Is there anyone else in person who wishes to speak this evening? Please, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
John Hins, 137 Brockway Avenue, Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
I was really glad that the gentleman that came up here before mentioned this, because it's something I wanted to talk about, and I think this is something that all of you should really think about seriously. It's the committee meetings. Unless you're retired or unemployed, the public can't attend them. They're at 9 a.m. on a weekday, or 10 a.m. on a weekday, or during the workday. These meetings need to be moved to later in the afternoons. I serve on the Oshkosh City Plan Commission as a chairman. Our meetings are at 4 p.m., and that's too early. But we have them at 4 p.m., and we actually have people who show up to our meetings. I'll guarantee you if our meetings were at 9 a.m., we wouldn't have anybody ever. And I also think, because through this redistricting process, I've heard a lot of comments about how nobody runs, we can't find enough candidates, people don't want to do it. Well, it might be more appealing to people to run if they knew that the committees that they would be potentially serving on wouldn't be interfering with their work days. This is a part-time job that you guys do here. And if people have to give up their work day, who wants to run? Just something to think about in the future. You want to encourage more people to run for these seats. I've heard it from many of you. The way you do that is you start affecting change that makes it enticing for people to run. It makes it so they can serve people because they don't have to give up their job, or they don't have to take half a vacation day just to show up for a committee meeting. So going down the road in the future, I really hope that the various committees take into consideration, there's a reason nobody shows up at their meetings. Most of us can't. We have jobs. We have mouths to feed. We have bills to pay. As much as we would like to be part of the government, we can't. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening? Is there anyone else in person who wishes to speak this evening? And if not, we'll then move to Zoom. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to Zoom. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on Zoom this evening? If so, please go ahead and raise your Zoom hand, and we'll call on you in succession. I see one hand up. I see 2 hands up. So first, I'll call on There was a Jennifer Kozer, but her name disappeared.
Can you
Jennifer-
hear me?
Yes, is this Jennifer Kozer?
Yeah, you unmuted me already.
Very good. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. First, I would like to speak about one. Mom, turn your volume off. First, I would like to speak about Resolution 211-09-2021, authorizing the borrowing of an amount not to exceed $4 million. I just want to say that I really don't think it's appropriate for the county to be borrowing money and then taxing the citizens for it, especially at this time. I know the taxes will be paid over a long period of time. I believe it was 15 years. But I still don't think it's appropriate right now because people have been suffering in many ways, including financially, for a long time now. And it's possible that they could continue to suffer for years because it's going to take a long time to recover from the pandemic. So I ask that you please vote against this resolution. And I ask that you do a roll call for this resolution as well. That would be very much appreciated. And also, I have one more thing I want to speak about quick. I know that Chairman Ramos addressed this at the beginning, the vaccine mandate, and he said that there's no resolution or anything on the agenda about this, and that's fine. But the citizens believe that some supervisors might be considering a vaccine mandate for Winnebago County. So at this point, you know, whether or not there's anything on the agenda or in the works, that's irrelevant. With everything that's going on in this country right now, you know, it's time that the county board be made aware of how the citizens feel, because this is a really important issue, you know, before anyone even has a chance to propose an order or a mandate. So just for the record, and for the board members who don't have email addresses, I'd like to say what I emailed to the board a couple days ago. I would like to say, please see the recent numbers on the VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System website. As of September 10th, 2021, from the COVID-19 vaccine, there have been 701,559 adverse reactions and 14,925 deaths. It's estimated that less than 10% of the true amount of adverse reactions and deaths are actually recorded in the VAERS system, which means that there could be over 6 million adverse reactions and over 134,000 deaths overall from the COVID vaccine alone. So these numbers to me prove that these vaccines are not safe. And so any supervisor who would vote to pass and enforce a vaccine mandate in Winnebago County would be guilty of crimes against humanity, including genocide, based on these numbers. So as I said in my email, please think carefully before you would take this any further. And that's all I wanted to say tonight. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Diane Kozer. Please, your mic's
Hello?
open.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Thank you. Diane Kozer from Winnebago. I would like to say too that it would really benefit the citizens if you continue to hold both Zoom and in-person meetings each month. Then I would also like to urge all of the supervisors to vote against the resolution for the county to borrow the $4 million. I don't agree with spending so freely during a time when many people are in financial crisis. Borrowing money and increasing taxes for citizens is not appropriate. Next, whether or not it's true that there are supervisors attempting to create a vaccine mandate in our county, I would like to remind you that not one of you has the right to play God by making that decision for any of us. What we do or don't put into our bodies is 100% our choice, and that's guaranteed by our Constitution. Our health choices are not your business, period, no matter what amendment or mandate you pass. There's a steady stream of current and very credible, highly credible information available to anybody who cares to look for it, testifying as to how destructive and deadly this experimental gene therapy actually is. Hundreds of thousands of people, and possibly even millions of them, have already died or been seriously injured by these injections. And no, they are not vaccines, and these shots should never be called vaccines. It's experimental gene therapy, and that information isn't hard to find either. I could send each of you hundreds of articles and videos backing up what I'm saying, but if I did, would you even look at them? Anyone who wants to know the truth about these things and really cares about humanity already is looking. And those who have are absolutely terrified by what they've seen. Thank you for considering my comments.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments this evening. Is there anyone else from the public on Zoom who wishes to speak this evening? If so, go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. Is there anyone else from the public on Zoom who wishes to speak this evening? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that portion of the agenda, and we'll move on to the next item, and that's correspondence. For that, I'll call on Clerk Ertmer.
Thank you. We just have 3 petitions for zoning amendments. The first one is from Leon Luker, Town of Black Wolf, requesting a zoning change to R1, rural residential. That's referred to planning and zoning. The second one is from Catherine H. Liner, Town of Amro, requesting rezoning to A2 General Agriculture District, also referred to planning and zoning. And the third one is from Rock Wenzel, Town of Wolf River, requesting rezoning to A2 General Agriculture District, also referred to planning and zoning.
Thank you, Clerk Ertmer. We'll move on to the next items. That's reports from any committees, commissions, and boards. Any reports from any committees, commissions, and boards? Supervisor Konecki? If we can go ahead and open up Supervisor Konecki's mic. Please go ahead.
Yesterday, the park department had a tour of the potential, I guess it is more than potential, dog park. We were very impressed. I hope that it finalizes to a written venture, but I was really impressed with the location and the whole setup. I think it's going to be a big success. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Konecki. Any other reports from committees, commissions, and boards? Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda, and we'll move on to the next item, which is approval of the minutes from the August 17, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the August 17, 2021 meeting. Any discussion, any changes? Supervisor Powers. If we could open up the mic for Supervisor Powers.
I don't know how important it is, but the cover says that we're at Winnebago County Courthouse for those meetings, and I'm not sure if that's, if that's really that important, but going forward, we probably need to get that fixed for future generations. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Supervisor Powers. Any other changes or adjustments to the minutes from August 17, 2021?
Chairman Remus, this is
Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next item, County Executive's Report. For that, Executive Damo.
All right, hello. A lot of stuff. I just want to address a little bit about the proposal to borrow tonight. I'm not going to come here and deny the fact that we don't have large balance I'm not going to deny the fact that, yes, when you look at a large balance, that's taking money that isn't ours, it's yours. That being said, even the fact that I have to ask for this now before we've approved the budget is something that we need to look at in the future. We got to make sure that our ducks are in a row, but I'm just following the process the best I can. And this is the process that we've always done. Now, there's things that are going to come out when we get to this budget hearing that we're going to discuss policy and procedures going forward. We have some housekeeping to do. Since 2015, we have budgeted on average to spend $2.5 million out of the general fund. Year after year, we did not plan to grow it. We planned to spend it down. And year after year, we in turn returned a $2.5 million surplus. So to those in the public, we did plan to spend down the surplus. But we turned around and we grew a surplus. So we have to do a better job of making sure that we have a true budget going forward. And I think we're going to take some measures this year to do that. Now, one of the things where I understand we're concerned that we're going to ask to borrow $4 million this year, when we looked at a bunch of different options, and we really did a lot of homework on this, to make sure that we can get our taxes down, because there's businesses and there are people out there that are suffering, much like mine. And I understand that. And when you'll see when we get to the budget, when we eventually get there, that we are looking to not only bring that tax rate down, but to keep it there. Now, if you want, we could spend everything out of our general fund right now and pay for everything out of that this year. But in 2 years, you're going to be shocked when all your taxes skyrocket back up. And we can't do that. So this is the way that we can gradually bring it down and keep it to where it's a reasonable level. And it's also why I'm going to be proposing that we get a strategic plan done and we have some priority-based budgeting done so we can actually look at what our role is as a county government and make sure that we're focusing on that. Now, there's going to be a lot of changes and we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. We are going to have to make a lot of hard choices going forward. I mean, even right now with COVID, it's tough. But if we look at the nursing crisis that we knew it was coming, because baby boomers are getting to that age between 2010 and 2030, we were supposed to see this huge bubble. We still have to fix that. We need to be able to grow nurses and not shrink it. We have to be able to figure out how we operate as a county going forward, most likely with less people, because that's what it looks like it's going to be. There's no magic wand that we can wave and there's suddenly going to be workers flooding in again. It's just not there. It's not going to happen. So we're going to have to make some tough choices. And tonight we're going to have to make one of those. And this $4 million borrowing is going to be one of those choices. And I understand with you that it doesn't look great. But it's how we smooth it out. Because we have to be able to live within our means. And we have to do that in a reasonable way that's planning, because at the end of the day, the roads still have to get plowed. At the end of the day, the sheriffs still have to patrol. At the end of the day, we have to make sure that we do our job, that we have elections that are run. We have a lot of stuff that people look at us to do, and I think you guys are doing a great job with that, and I do agree that, you know, we want people to run. We always want competition. I hope there's somebody running against me in 3 years, because that's what makes a healthy society. But you guys all have to understand that we have to make tough decisions. And that's what all these people here are doing, and I respect you for that. That'll be it for my executive report today, if that's okay. I do have some appointments.
Very good. Let's move to executive appointments.
All right. Winnebago County Highway Commissioner, Robert Damel.
There's a motion and a second to approve the appointment of Robert Damel to Winnebago County Highway Commissioner. Any discussion? And we'll do Supervisor Powers. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
John, I'm just wondering, how is this man related to you?
He is not. Gottlieb Daigle moved here in 1823, and there are a whole bunch of us. So we're probably both related to Gottlieb, but I've never seen him at a family reunion ever.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Supervisor Rasmussen?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say that I've worked with Bob for many years, supervised him for quite a few years, and when he started with the county, worked his way up, we always knew he was destined for this someday, and I hope you all support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. Anyone else who wishes to speak? And for any supervisor on Zoom, just raise your Zoom hand if you wish to speak. Seeing none, we did have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Congratulations, Commissioner Daigle.
Welcome aboard officially.
All right, very good. Look forward to working with you in that capacity. All right, we have a few other county executives appointments. Please proceed, Executive Daigle.
All right, for the Elijah D. Smith Public Library Board of Trustees, Joseph Franzoy from Menasha.
There's a motion and a second to approve the appointment to the Elisha D. Smith Public Library Board of Trustees. Any discussion? Do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries.
All right, for the ADRC Committee, Tamar Mathwig from Amro.
There's a motion and a second to approve the appointment to the ADRC Committee. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries.
All right, for the Human Services Board, Ralph Harrison from the town of Algoma.
There's a motion and a second to approve the appointment to the Human Services Board. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And that motion carries. And just to clarify for the supervisors on Zoom, if there's any concern about if there was a nay vote, then at that time of the nay vote, just raise your Zoom hand and we'll clarify. And that motion carries, so we'll move on to the next appointment.
All right, for the Diversity Affairs Commission, Rodney Frazier from Oshkosh.
There's a motion and a second to approve the appointment to the Diversity Affairs Commission. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. The final appointment.
All right, and for the Human Services Board, Supervisor Brian Stafford.
There's a motion and a second to approve the appointment to the Human Services Board of Supervisor Brian Stafford. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Very good. Thank you, Executive Daigle. Moving on to the next item, that's County Board Chairman's report. So really, pretty short tonight, just a couple things. Reminder, first of all, we had 2 meetings here in September, but for October, there's only 1. So our next meeting would be Tuesday, October 19th, so approximately a month from now. So just making sure folks are aware of that. Just a reminder, I reminded last week, but we're getting very close to budget time. There were some references to it this evening, but we're less than a month and a half away. So our budget session officially starts on Monday, November 1st at 6 p.m., and then would continue the following day on Tuesday. So just reminding folks of that coming very shortly. And then a reminder of a couple things I mentioned last week as well. So we do have 2 supervisory vacancies that occurred fairly recently, one with the passing of Supervisor Bob Warnke, as well as one with the resignation of Supervisor Newhoff. So former Supervisor Warnke was from District 21, which represented part of Oshkosh. So we are in the process now of soliciting those who may be interested in it. We've put a posting together as well. At some point in the future, once we've vetted any candidates, we would then put forward to this board a recommendation for the appointment. Anyone who would fill either one of those positions would fill out the term through the April election that is coming up in 2022, just so everyone's aware. And then in Supervisor Newhoff, she represented previously District 8, which represented part of Neenah. So likewise, we're in the same process of considering applicants for that position. Likewise, any individual that would be considered for that would be brought before this board for a recommended appointment and ultimate approval by this body to fill that vacancy as well. So just want to make sure everyone was aware of both of those situations. And with that, that concludes my report. So we'll move on to the next item. So as you can see, we have no zoning reports and ordinances tonight. So we'll move on right to the resolutions and ordinances. The first two items relate to our redistricting process related to prior meetings, including last week. So the first one is resolution number 206-09-2021, approving tentative supervisory district plan option 1. For that, I will call on Supervisor Wingren on Zoom. Please go ahead, Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of resolution 206-9-2021. That's option 1, as you know. Go ahead. Second? Is there a second?
Yep, there is a second. Please go ahead, Supervisor Wingren.
We've gone through a long, open process, I think a good process, to come up with these two maps. Of the two, they're relatively the same as we discussed last week, so we have to make this decision tonight. So I hope we can just, quickly do this, make your choice, open and fair, that's the way it'll have to be. And I thank all the people that worked so hard to get this to this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. So we did have a motion and a second, so we'll open it up for discussion on resolution number 206-09-2021. Any discussion? I see Supervisor Snyder, and he's on Zoom. Please go ahead, Supervisor Snyder. Yes, we can hear you well.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe my friend Supervisor Fari commented last Tuesday. I apologize for not being here, but I was in the hospital. But after I got out, I did some further research, and either one of these options, either 1 or 3, results in the fact that 3 of the 5 members of the Winnebago Town Board do no longer live in District 35. As Supervisor Fari pointed out, none of these 3 can run for or vote for the county supervisor in the district where 90% of their constituents live. And I would ask that my constituents, the Kozers, take note of that. I mean, I understand that lines are lines. But this, and I also understand and I'm confident that either of the other 2 members of the town board or any of the members of the village board of the village of Winnebago, I'm confident that they can carry on if and when I decide not to run. But it's just almost, as I hope Chuck mentioned, my term is it's obscene that we take 3 of the 5 members right out of the equation and don't even let them vote for a supervisor that represents 90% of their constituents. And last thing I'll say is I think it's shame on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. Open it up. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Any other discussion or comments? Any supervisor on Zoom, please go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. Please, Supervisor Powers?
I had a question, Mr. Chairman. Are we intending to vote for both of these, or you pick one that you're voting for? If we vote for both of them, that means you get a chance to put them forward for a vote, or we're voting now whether we want 1 or whether we want 3?
Yep. So very good question. So the way it works is we're on map option 1. if we vote on that and the majority approve it, then that's our map, and we would not be considering Resolution 207. If you wanted map number 3, Resolution 207, then you'd be opposing map number 1, because the way it's situated currently, if we vote on map number 1 and it passes, then we wouldn't be voting on 207 or map 3, because map 1 would become ours. I see one calling, Supervisor Eisen. Please go ahead, Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, could we call upon the planner to address the issue that Supervisor Snyder brought to the floor? There does seem to be an adverse impact, but there are always a lot of adverse impacts.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
He's at, so my understanding, Supervisor Eisen, are you asking Director Bougie for whether there's any
Yeah,
adverse?
could he give us some consolation in terms of how this has played out, so that that there is an impact which we on the surface don't see.
So,
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
please, go ahead. What's your point, Supervisor Wingren?
I don't think we should be at this late hour talking about individual lines, especially when it affects certain people that spoke prior to me. We're not here tonight to draw lines to accommodate individuals. This is a blind map. No attention was made, hopefully, to incumbency at all. So to go that route would just be wrong, I think.
So Supervisor Eisen, so what you've said so far isn't a question. Do you have a specific question for Director Bougie?
I suppose to frame the question as pointedly as I can, when we are creating the maps and we're massaging the data so that districts come out within the parameters that the law specifies, are there additional considerations made in that decision? And had any of these decisions been brought to the planning attention prior to the public presentation of the data?
So the question is, are there considerations made for the location of those town supervisors when considering county supervisory maps? Is that the question?
Yeah.
No.
Or is it feasible to modify the impact?
Okay, I think I saw his head, and you tell me wrong. His answer, I believe, was no. There was. You tell me based on your head. There's not consideration of where they would be living within that district. Is that accurate, Director Bougie?
Yes, that's
Thank you.
accurate.
All right, very good. All right. Moving on then, calling Supervisor Norton, followed by Supervisor Fari. Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
So my question is, and the audience asked, are we going to do a voice vote? I mean, not a voice vote, a roll call vote for this? And if not, I guess I'll request one.
Are you asking for one?
Well, I'll ask for one. I guess I don't see any problem, so I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Okay.
Since that was asked by the audience.
Okay, so if you've asked for one, we'll do that. Next, we'll call on Supervisor Fari. Please go ahead, Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't see any issue with asking a question to our Planning and Zoning Department to explain the criteria for establishing, in this case, District 30. Now, the obvious answer is it's based on population. But Supervisor
Schneider has raised some concerns. I think a simple explanation would be warranted. We are voting on this tonight, and if people have questions, we still should take the opportunity to answer them the best we can. Thank you.
I see our county executive has some information. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to speak on it. There's a couple things I think that went into this. Number one, I think if my planning team over there, if they were drawing districts and I walked in their office and they had little dots on the map of where people lived, I don't think Jerry would be working for us much longer. And I think he understands that. I also want to say that this is a condensed timeline. Normally, again, I've said before, we should have 180 days to go through this and pass it back and forth, and we don't. And I think it's commendable that we've gotten as far as we have in the time that we've done. We've only have 80 days to do this. And the third part of it is that the one section in the county that really experienced the most growth was in between, and I believe we're right, between Winnebago and Fox Crossing, right there, and that's where most of these lines moved, because we had growth there, so that we had to, that's where, wherever you see the most growth is where you're gonna see the most line movement. Is that a correct assumption? Right, so it was a coordination or a accumulation of condensed time, trying to follow the municipal guidelines and population growth. And that was the only reason I think the lines were there. And I can assure you that in the time that I've worked with our planning and zoning, that they have showed utmost integrity. And that, again, the last person that I would expect to draw lines around a house would be our planning and zoning.
Mr. Chairman, I do not speak to fault or accusations of that. I simply tried to address Supervisor Schneider's issue, and perhaps the zoning department could very simply answer that. Sure. And give that opportunity to him. I'm not looking at fault here. I'm not saying anything was wrong or done wrong.
Correct.
It's
Director
a simple
Bougie, do you have
question
anything
to
else
answer
to?
Supervisor Schneider's
Sure.
concern?
Sure. Director Bougie, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Diane, Diane created the maps, and she can, fill you in a little
Very good.
clearer on,
Please,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I'm just going to wait for Adam here to bring up the map on the percent change in population. If you look at District 35, it grew by 6%. That's way too much population for that district. We only need 4,770, and if we were to put today's population in it, it's now over 5,000 people. So that district is going to shrink. So part of that town of Winnebago has to go to another district. There's nothing else we can do. That district has to have the same population as every other district. So since District 30 was already in Winnebago, just more of it went into that district. So I hope that answers your question.
Very good. Appreciate the explanation. Thank you. Very good. I'll next call on Supervisor Rasmussen. Please go ahead, Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things on this subject that we're just talking about here. As it's said a few times here, these districts aren't drawn for people. And to say, well, these three people who represent this township might want to run, we don't even know that. We don't draw these maps for potential people that want to run. I represent town of, I'm the town chairman for town of Algoma, but that's a different thing. That's my town constituency. If my district changed and I had part of Algoma and part of Amro, so be it. That would be my county constituency. It's two different things. So I don't know where it says here that you have to represent the same people because you're on a different board. I think that's irrelevant here. My second point is, it's my understanding that we have to have a vote on this tonight, correct? This cannot get tabled.
It would have ramifications of the timeline potentially for
So-
other municipalities. because we then hand this over to them to.
So
aid
my
in their
concern here
maps.
is if we vote one at a time, they both could get voted down, then that's not going to work. So what's the process to change this to say, when we vote 1 or 3? That way, one of them will win.
The only way to do that is by a ballot, as was referenced before. So there's only 2 ways you realistically can do this. You vote on one. If you vote it up, then that becomes our map, and we don't vote on the next one. If you vote it down, then we vote on the next one, map 3. If you vote it up, that becomes our map. If you vote it down, we don't have a map. Or you do a ballot, like you were saying, and then whichever on the ballot has the most votes then becomes our map. Now, I would say if we did that, I would want us to vote on the actual resolution again for whatever that map won the ballot, because that resolution has words in it. So that's the only thing I would add in regards to that. But you could do a ballot.
Is that a predetermined process that we are
If we were to
obligated
do,
follow?
if we were to do something like that, we could do it similarly to what we've done at our organizational meetings when you vote for chair and vice chair.
So we could just do it on a roll call vote and start that way, right?
Yeah, we could do that too. Actually, you could. Yeah, we could do it, yeah, and then we would keep a tally sheet. So we could still do a roll call. So in other words, it was clear, and the public would know, and we would be honoring that, and the clerk would be asking map 1 or map 3. And then with each supervisor, she would record, if it's map 1 or 3, we would tally which has the most votes at the end. Whichever has the most votes, that would become our map. However, once again, we'd vote on the official resolution for that map, because once again, we're adopting a resolution with words.
Would it be proper for me to make a motion to do that at this time?
You certainly could do that.
Then I make that motion that we vote on a roll call vote, 1 or 3, so we get a clear winner.
Okay?
Second.
So there's a motion and a second that we vote as a roll call vote between map 1 and map 3. Okay, so in other words, when she called your supervisory district, you'd say map 1 or map 3. She would tally them. At the end, she would count the total number of votes for map 1, total number of votes for map 3. Whichever had the most votes would become our map, but we would still officially vote then on that resolution, meaning 2 or 6 or 2, 7, so that we'd be adopting the language that comes with the resolution. And the language is the same with each of them. Please, so just a clarification with Supervisor Powers. And then we're gonna vote whether or not we're gonna go to ballot. We technically haven't done it. We have a motion and a second, so we have to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 questions. I'm not sure, one, is it that big a deal if the District 35 and Winnebago, which had a big growth, they were over 5,000? Is that significant somehow? And number 2, I hate the idea that Winnebago can't vote for their own, that Winnebago can't vote for their own town board, but just because your supervisor is one person doesn't affect how you vote for your town board, does it, or does it?
Well, so to be honest, though, I thought you were going to talk about the process, because we're technically on a motion to vote by ballot.
I'm sorry.
No, and that's okay. I was trying to give you an opportunity, but since it's not on that, we're on the motion to determine the vote by effective ballot through the roll call, okay? All right, so that's...
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Supervisor Wingren has his hand up.
Oh, please, specifically on the process?
I was going to move to do this. This is a terrific idea. It makes the process open, clear, and gives us a decision.
Very good.
Good idea.
All right, so we're going to vote, though, as a group, that we all agree to use this process, okay? Yea vote means that we are going to do the roll call, effective ballot vote, and tally 1 versus 3, okay? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed to doing that, saying nay. So that motion carries. So we're going to move to that process, okay? All right, very good. So we're going to have the clerk call the roll. Now, when she calls your district, please remember, you're going to say map 1 or map 3, and then she will tally the total at the end. No, because we're going to a vote. Okay?
Supervisor Konecki? Supervisor Brunn?
Supervisor Brunn?
Pardon?
He can't unmute himself.
I don't see him.
He's holding his hand up with three
Oh,
fingers.
there he is.
There he is.
Okay, three.
Oh, please
I
go,
see him.
oh, three.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
and I'm on.
Three.
we saw it. Thank you, Supervisor Brunn.
Okay.
Yep, potatoes, potatoes.
Supervisor Borchert?
One.
Supervisor Eisen? Supervisor Ramos?
One.
Supervisor Defferding? Supervisor Lenz?
One.
Supervisor Nussbaum? Supervisor Stafford? Supervisor Albrecht? Supervisor Gabbert? Supervisor Bender? Supervisor Conrad?
One.
Supervisor Shorsey?
One.
Supervisor Belante?
One.
Supervisor Gordon?
Three.
Supervisor Wingren?
One.
Supervisor Lautenschlager? Supervisor Norton? Supervisor Zelmer?
Map one.
Supervisor Skellinger?
Map one.
Supervisor Buck?
Map three.
Supervisor Powers? Supervisor Locke? I don't know if she was on. Did we see? Okay. I don't believe she's present. Supervisor Cox? Supervisor Finch? He's not there either. Okay. Supervisor Youngquist?
One.
Supervisor Fari? Supervisor Rasmussen? Supervisor Keller? Supervisor Egan?
Three.
Supervisor Ellis? Supervisor Snyder?
One.
Supervisor Jose?
Okay, by a vote of 24 to 8, map 1 was the one selected. So map 1 had 24 votes, map 3 had 8 votes. Okay, so that is the map we now officially are voting on as a resolution. So that's resolution 206-092021. We actually did have a motion in a second earlier about that one. One clarification, just so everyone's on the same page. I was notified earlier that we really should include 2 words on line 25. They're small but important, and to meet the intent of what we're trying to do. So I don't think anyone will be surprised. But on line 25, where it says authorized tentative, it should say authorizes and adopts. Authorizes and adopts, just adding the word adopts. Okay? Is that okay with this board, that that's a friendly amendment to add the words "and adopts" on line 25? All right. All right, well, there's a motion and a second, so we'll go ahead and do a voice vote. So the motion and a second to add the words "and adopts" after authorizes on line 25. Any discussion? And I believe it was Supervisor Fari who made the motion, I believe. All right, there wasn't a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Very good. Now we are on the official 206-09-2021 motion as amended. All right? We already technically voted, but we're going to vote officially. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And that motion carries. So officially, map 1 is our adopted tentative map. Very good. Thank you all. All right. So we'll move on then to the next item. So we don't do anything with item 207. So we're on item 208, which is The second item on the second page, commendation for Dennis Collin. I'll call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move for Resolution 20809-2021.
There's a motion and a second. Please proceed, Supervisor Rasmussen.
Dennis Callen was hired as clerk dispatcher in the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office in August 1978 and continued serving the citizens of Winnebago County for 43 years until his retirement last month. Dennis was able to use all resources at his disposal to make good decisions while handling difficult calls. His experience and his excellent memory enabled him to be a resource to other dispatchers as well. He was always conscientious and a team player and saw the agency through many changes in the software and hardware systems used. Dennis's professionalism and service are both commendable and appreciated. Please join me in expressing our gratitude and best wishes as he enters retirement.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 208-09-2021. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next item, that's resolution number 209-09-2021. Commendation for David Roth. I'll once again call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you. I move for Resolution 20909-2021.
There's a motion and a second. Please proceed, Supervisor Rasmussen.
David Roth came to the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office after 12 years working as a sales manager for Coca-Cola and became a corrections officer in November 1994. He became a patrol officer in 1996 and was promoted to lieutenant in the patrol division in April 2017. David was knowledgeable, known for his sense of humor, and always respected by his peers. He worked on second and third shifts for many years. David's experience was an asset to both the agency and many of the newly hired staff that worked under his leadership. David's distinguished record and compassionate service is both commendable and appreciated. Please join me in expressing our gratitude and best wishes as he enters retirement.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 209-09-2021. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next resolution. It's resolution number 210-09-2021. Commendation for Lori Schilcher. I'll once again call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you. I move for Resolution 210-09-2021.
There's a motion. There's a motion and a second. Please go ahead, Supervisor Rasmussen.
Lori Schilker began working as a temporary account clerk in the Winnebago County Finance Department in September 1991, and then accepted a regular account clerk position with the Community Programs Department in February 1992. She retired as a financial associate from the Human Services Department on September 1, 2021. Lori worked with other human services staff and also directly with agency clients, often playing a crucial role in determining ability to pay. She is knowledgeable, organized, and dependable, and her work as part of a strategic planning work group was appreciated. We wish her the best in retirement.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 210-09-2021. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next item. That's resolution number 211-09-2021. Authorizing the borrowing of an amount not to exceed $4 million and authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation promissory notes therefore. I'll once again call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for Resolution 211-09-2021.
Second.
Please go ahead, Supervisor Rasmussen.
Okay, I have some things to read here. I've gotten written down so I don't forget any. Some of these might be a little redundant from County Executive Damel, what he said, but I'm going to read them as I have them here. On August 5th, a meeting was held to discuss the 2021 bonding and effects on the debt levy. The meeting was comprised of myself as Chair of Personnel and Finance Committee, John Damel, the County Executive, Vicki Fitzgerald, Director of Finance, Carol Blackmore, Budget Manager, and Justin Fisher from Baird. We looked at several different scenarios for bonding and or not bonding and using general fund balance. We discussed each scenario in length and came to the consensus that the scenario being presented tonight was the best one to accomplish our overall goal of lowering the debt levy a good amount in a way that will continue to gradually go lower year after year. In addition, interest rates are still at an all-time low, so it makes sense to take advantage of them, just like we did last year. Please keep in mind that we paid off 2 callable bonds during 2021 in the amount of $2,865,000 and funded $5 million for the 2021 highway projects, all out of the undesignated general fund balance. We are proposing to borrow $4 million short-term for 1 year. I heard some things about 15 years. It's 1 year. As a comparison, for the last 3 years, we have averaged approximately $10 million a year in borrowing. So this, of course, is a $6 million reduction from that. This will allow our debt levy to go down by 8 cents, from 62 cents to 54 cents. Then we will be able to maintain the debt levy at the 54-cent level and go down gradually each year thereafter if we were to borrow $10 million and under. Of course, each year we will reevaluate the scenarios of bonding versus not bonding. If we chose to use only general fund balance this year for capital projects, the debt levy would drop a drastic amount, around 40 cents. But then in the next year or two, when we would need to borrow again, the debt levy would jump back up by roughly the same amount. This would only be a 1-year taxpayer relief and would become a tax burden the following years. In your packets tonight, along with this resolution, there is a listing of the proposed projects to be bonded for and a presentation from Baird, which was handed out to each of you tonight. At the September P&F committee, Justin Fisher from Baird presented this $4 million short-term bonding option to the committee, and it was approved unanimously. So if you have any further questions, Justin was not able to be here tonight, but Kevin Mullen from Baird is on Zoom, I believe, and also Director of Finance can answer any more questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. We'll open it up to the board for any questions or comments. Any discussion? Please, go ahead, Supervisor Bender.
I just want to say, like last year, we paid off some borrowings that were over 3% in interest. So we saved basically over 2%. We borrowed at, I believe it was just a little over 1% last year, 1.25%, and we paid off debt that was at over 3%. So it's like if we have deplete our reserves and interest rates go up, like in the past, in 1981, interest rates were 18%. You know, as long as we have a reserve, we have a cushion. You know, with all the money we're borrowing for the COVID, we don't know where interest rates are going to go. They're projecting a inflation this year to be over 6%. So the lady that was saying she wasn't going to get no raise on Social Security, right now it's projected at 6.1%. So, you know, inflation is going to take over, and when inflation takes over, interest rates go up. And if we want to deplete our basically reserves so that we're borrowing at 4 or 5% versus a little over 1%, you know, on $100,000, you borrow at 1%, it's $1,000. You borrow at 5%, it's $5,000. Now's the time to basically, if we can, pay off debt that's at a higher rate or borrow money because it's cheap. And when interest rates get high, if we want to take money out of reserve, I can understand it. You know, we're basically saving ourselves from high interest rates down the road. So I think it's the smartest thing we can do when rates are this low is to borrow the money. And if we have debt that is out there at 3% like we did last year, we can pay that debt down. But we're silly not to borrow the money when interest rates are low and we have debt out there. Some of it is we have out there is higher right now, but unfortunately it's not, we can't pay it off. You sign up for a certain amount of years before you can pay it down. But I think it's smart to pass this and move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bender. See a couple other call-ins. First, I'll call in Supervisor Konecki, followed by Supervisor Defferding. Please go ahead, Supervisor Konecki.
That's a mistake, but I am for it as it is now.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Konecki. Next speaker is Supervisor Defferting. Please go ahead, Supervisor Defferting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll fully admit that I'm not much of a money guy. When it gets to the numbers and it gets into the weeds a little bit, admittedly, I get a little lost myself sometimes. But, you know, and I kind of think more on the abstract level. However, and I appreciate the explanations that Executive Damel and Supervisor Rasmussen provided, and that certainly does shed some light on this, on why this resolution has been brought forward. I do understand that the reasoning that the interest rates are low and it might get higher later on. Sure, yes, that might be the case. And that inflation might take over. Yes, that might be the case. But we also have to think about, you know, how inflation actually happens. Inflation happens because money is being flushed into the economy, and inflation happens. It's a regressive tax, and we're starting to see a lot of that, especially over the last year. I know that I've kind of repeated what I said in my previous objections in regards to accepting money from the federal government regarding the American Recovery Act, but I just feel that it bears repeating here. And I do see that what they're saying is we could just go ahead and use our reserves. Well, from what I understood, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought 2 years ago we had about $28 million in reserves. So if I'm not really sure if we decide not to borrow this, that we're going to deplete all that $28 million. And if we did, then we certainly spent a lot more than I originally thought. And if we spent that money, then really the problem is not the fact that if we don't borrow now, we're going to pay more later. It's that the county is spending too much. And we have to think about what our role in government is. And we have to think about what we're spending it on and what can the community take over. What can the community do instead of having the county take over and be part of this and be a part of everything. So with that in mind, I really think that we need to take a second look at where we are in county government and what we should ask for our people in a free society. So I know that I may be probably the minority here in objecting to it, but I am going to be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Defferty. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Is there anyone else? All right, very good. Now, there was someone who asked for a roll call vote, so we're going to do that this evening. We're going to honor this. Very good.
Supervisor Konecki? Aye. Supervisor Brunn? Oh, he's shaking his head. Okay. It's a visual. Supervisor Borchert?
Aye.
Supervisor Eisen? Aye. Chairman Ramos?
Aye.
Supervisor Defferting? No. Supervisor Lenz?
Aye.
Supervisor Nussbaum? Aye. Supervisor Stafford? No. Supervisor Albrecht? Supervisor Gabbert? Supervisor Bender? Aye. Supervisor Conrad?
Aye.
Supervisor Shorsey?
Aye.
Supervisor Belante?
Aye.
Supervisor Gordon?
Aye.
Supervisor Wingren?
Aye.
Supervisor Lautenschlager? Supervisor Norton? Supervisor Zelmer?
Aye.
Supervisor Skellinger?
Aye.
Supervisor Buck?
Aye.
Supervisor Powers? Supervisor Locke is not on the meeting. Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Finch? Supervisor Youngquist? Aye. Supervisor Youngquist? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Supervisor Fari? Supervisor Rasmussen? Supervisor Keller? Supervisor Egan?
Aye.
Supervisor Ellis? Supervisor Snyder?
Aye.
Supervisor Jose?
And that motion carries 30-2. I wanted to honor the roll call, and I also wanted to make sure everyone knew that required a 3/4 vote of the membership present. So that did require 27 votes to pass. So that passed 30-2. So we'll move on to the next resolution. That's resolution number 212-09-2021, approving contract for operation of Three Waves Health Clinic by Premise Health Employer Solutions, LLC. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for Resolution 212-09-2021.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 212-09-2021. We'll open it up for any discussion. I see one call in. First, I'll call on Supervisor Defferting. Please go ahead, Supervisor Defferting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question on this. This is Premise Health Employer Solutions. They're a new company that's going to be taking over this contract. Is that correct? Yep. Okay. And so my question is why were they approached, and what benefit did they have compared to our previous company that we contracted out to?
I'll call on Director Collard. Please go ahead, Director Collard.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh. And you might have to switch it. I believe it's on now, Director Collard.
Okay now? Thank
Very
you.
good.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Defferting. The clinic is operated by three partners: County, the City of Oshkosh, and the Oshkosh Area School District. It's been operated by a company called Helix, Inc., and a predecessor to Helix. Originally, it was Intera, Inc., when we started the clinic. And that was 6.5 years ago. So we basically did a 3-year contract and then another 3-year contract. At the end of that second 3-year contract, which was the end of 2020, we looked and said, we really want to think about this a little bit more and investigate some options before we go ahead and do another 3-year contract. So we just did a 1-year extension with Helix, and the three parties decided to jointly go through a process to evaluate whether Helix was the best possible vendor or whether we wanted to find another option. So we did a whole request for proposal process. We hired our consultant, actually the county's consultant led the process, obtained bids from 8 or 10 different vendors that do this sort of thing. And we were really looking for some upgrades at the clinic, frankly. Helix is a relatively small company. They're primarily a wellness services company. They only operate a very few of these clinics right now. And I think that's a dwindling part of their business. So they, frankly, just didn't have the resources to do the upgrades we had in mind. So we were looking more at larger companies. We also were looking, as we did originally, primarily at independent vendors. In other words, we can get one of the healthcare systems to run a clinic for us. The Aurora or Ascension or ThedaCare would all be glad to do that sort of thing. But we felt it was important to maintain independent operators so that they wouldn't be aligned with that healthcare system, because one of the real big issues is referrals to specialists, things like that. There's a lot of money to be either made by the healthcare systems or saved by us, depending on those decisions. And so that was our strategy overall. We did look at a number of proposals. We invited 4 vendors to give us presentations, including Helix and some of the larger vendors. And 2 of them were selected as finalists, where we had a second presentation. So we went through a fairly lengthy and involved process, examined extensive documentation. We checked references on each of the finalists, looked at their book of business. And Premise is about, it's a national company. It runs over 800 employer-sponsored health clinics throughout the country. There's 15 or 20 in Wisconsin, I don't remember. They don't do any other local governments in Wisconsin currently, but they do local governments in other states. And they bring a lot more resources to the table that Helix couldn't really provide. We were finding it really difficult to get Helix to do some things we wanted them to do. They're a good partner. They were doing as well as they could, but Premise has a tremendous infrastructure in place, tremendous experience, and we really are well positioned to do some major upgrades. So some of the improvements we expect to see in the clinic include, we're going to have a full-time physician there, a
Up till now, it's been staffed by advanced practice nurse practitioners. They are going, they have, for instance, a deal with Mayo Clinic. They can call Mayo Clinic for advice whenever they need to. One of the ways you can really save money on healthcare, it's been proven, major study by the RAND Corporation has been very influential. If you really look at chronic disease management, you can save a ton of money. It's got an enormous return on investment, and it's really the only kind of wellness program that you can really show those dollars and cents return. And Helix put in a disease management program for us, but it was very difficult, and they just aren't experienced and don't have the resources to do that well. Premise has a total state-of-the-art system off the shelf where they can really consult with employees, make sure they're following best practices. They have a system where you can go in and consult with them about whether you need a specialist, and if so, what kind of specialist you need, and they can pull up data, graphs, charts, show our employees, show our patient what providers in that specialty have the best outcomes, what are the most cost-effective as well, which ones are in our network. So they have tremendous bells and whistles. The objective we have is to really make the clinic the home for our employees' health care. And with Helix, it was too often, no, we just don't really do that, you should go see a doctor. So we were losing a lot of opportunities that way, or have been, and this could be a major upgrade. So they also have occupational health services, for instance. We started doing some of our pre-employment drug screenings and so forth, which we do for every new employee through the clinic. But there's the more complicated ones, the more physical exams they weren't set up to do. They didn't have the resources to do that. Premise can take over all our pre-employment. They can do our DOT, random drug testing for the highway department and sheriff's department, things like that. They'll have telehealth available, coordinated with the clinic staff. So if I want to talk to a doctor at 3 a.m. on a Monday morning, I can get online, and they say it's normally within a maximum of 2-hour wait time, I can talk to a Wisconsin licensed physician, about my problem. And then later that morning, when the clinic opens, the clinic practitioners will have that data in front of them on the computer when I call, the information about what advice I was given and what my problem was. So we're also looking at establishing a new physical therapy benefit at the clinic. That's not decided yet, but it's included in the budget and covered by this contract. So there are some tremendous opportunities, I think, to really upgrade these services. It is going to be more expensive, but if we drive more people to the clinic by offering a physician and some of these additional services, I'm confident, pay for itself several times over. So we're really doing a major upgrade here, and I'm very excited about the prospect.
Thank you. That was a very thorough answer.
Thank you, Director Collard, and thank you, Supervisor Deffley. I see one call in on Zoom. I'll call on Supervisor Buck. Please go ahead, Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Collard, was Premise the lowest responsible bidder? You said you had a number of bidders. Were they the lowest? Did you find some other things that you liked about them?
Could we open up the mic?
Hello?
There we go. Thank you.
No, they were not the lowest responsible bidder. Since this is not a public works project, we're not governed by the bidding law per se, and we don't need to do that. It wasn't a bid process, it was a request for proposals. So they were not the lowest bidder, but they were the bidder we felt would bring the most value to the table overall. The lowest bidder was probably, if I remember correctly, Helix, but they weren't really able to provide all the services we wanted.
Thank you for that. And then one final question. I don't know if statutory it allows us to do this, but other employers in the county, I guess, buying into this, are we allowed to do that? I'm just asking, simply by bringing more people in the fold, could that save the taxpayers any money? And I don't know if we're allowed to do that, just a question.
We are allowed to do that, and we've looked at that in the past, but right now we're sticking with the 3 partners. There were a couple of my smaller employers that had interest joining early on in the clinic project, and it was determined essentially to not be cost-effective to bring them in. It would have not helped our operation. If we found the right partner, there is an option to bring another employer in if there's someone suitable. But that would require a vote by all 3 of the entities, the city and the school district, as well as the county.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Supervisor Buck. I see one other call-in. I'll call on Supervisor Conrad. Please go ahead, Supervisor Conrad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let you know I will be abstaining from the vote tonight as my employer is one of the other partners in this. I don't want to have any perceived conflict of interest.
Appreciate you letting us know this. Thank you, Supervisor Conrad. Any other call-ins or questions? Seeing none, then we'll attempt to do a voice vote. All those in favor of approving the contract for operation of Three Ways Health Clinic by Premise Health Employer Solutions LLC, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Very good, thank you. And thank you for the information, Director Collard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on to the next item, that's resolution number 213-09-2021, amending the Articles of Organization and the bylaws of the East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. For that, I will call on Vice Chair Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of Resolution 213-09-2021.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 213-09-2021. We'll open it up for any discussion. I see one call in on Zoom, Supervisor Brunn. Please go ahead, Supervisor Brunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this proposal is good because, again, it takes out some of the partisanship, and I think it will make this a better organization and a better fit for planning for the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunn. Any other discussion? I'll call on Supervisor Albrecht. Please go ahead, Supervisor Albrecht.
This was done years ago.
Could we please open up the mic for Supervisor? There we go. Please go ahead, Supervisor Albrecht.
Years ago, this used to be very political, and this had ended all that politicalness of it.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Albrecht. Any other call-ins or discussion? Seeing none, so there was a motion and a second to approving amending the Articles of Organization and the bylaws of the East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. And that motion carries. Very good. And thank you, Mr. Engelbrecht, for being here this evening. Thank you for taking the time. We'll move on to the next item, and that's resolution number 214-09-2021. Authorized execution of a quitclaim deed between Kimberly-Clark Corporation and Winnebago County. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Albrecht.
213-09-2021.
There was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 214-09-2021. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Our motion carries. Moving on down to the next resolution. That's the last resolution on the second page. Resolution number 215-09-2021. Requests authority to apply to the Department of Natural Resources for funds to restore pathway and stream bank damage at Walkout Creek Dam and to commit such funds as may be made available towards the restoration project. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Konetsky.
I move for resolution 215-09-2021.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 215-09-2021. We'll open it up for any discussion. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers, and then Supervisor Fari. we could open up the mic, please, for Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering why there's not a committee vote listed on this resolution.
Very good, and I can confirm this committee vote was 5-0.
5-0?
Should have been on there, but it was 5-0.
Thank you.
Very good. Supervisor Fari? Please go ahead.
Same question. Thank you.
Very good. All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next resolution. It's at the top of page number 3. It's the final resolution this evening. It's resolution number 216-09-2021, establishing the official name of the new Winnebago County Dog Park located in the village of Fox Crossing. For that, I will call on Supervisor Konetsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask for the approval of Resolution 216-09-2021.
There's a motion and a second to approve Resolution 216-09-2021, establishing the official name of the new Winnebago County Dog Park located in the village of Fox Crossing to officially be named Jerry Finch Winnebago County Dog Park. We'll open it up for any discussion. Please go ahead, Supervisor Konetsky.
Jerry Finch is the former park director, and for the longest time, years, he had looked for a dog park in the area someplace. And so many times he got close, and so many times it fell through. He never quit. Finally, we got this land, and it cost for $1, I think. If you get a chance, get out there. The fence is up now, and all the work that Jerry put in, I think it's appropriate that we call it the Jerry Finch Winnebago Dog Park. You're going to like it. It's not done yet. It'll need some amenities out there. But trees and a nice big spot, a shade, a sun, and you're really going to like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Konetsky. I see a couple other call-ins. So first I'll call on Supervisor Ellis, followed by Supervisor Zelmer on Zoom. So Supervisor Ellis, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just not a believer in naming somebody on a dog park. Nothing against Jerry at all, but I think it should stay a Winnebago County Park. We got another dog park. It is not named after anybody, I don't think, in the central Wisconsin. Hey, maybe we're going to have to need one down on the southern end, which is toward Fond du Lac. I just don't believe in naming after county supervisors at this particular time.
Thank you, Supervisor Ellis. Next speaker is Supervisor Zelmer on Zoom, followed by Supervisor Rasmussen. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr.
Please go ahead, Supervisor
Thank you,
Zelmer.
Mr. Chairman. I totally support this resolution. Jerry Finch has worked diligently for years and years, and it couldn't be a better name. I'm all for naming it after him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Zelmer. Next, we have Supervisor Rasmussen, followed by Supervisor Shorsey. Please go ahead, Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this gets to be an emotional thing, but I think we're going down a slippery slope when we start naming things after county board supervisors. I worked with hundreds of county employees over my 30-plus years, and that did amazing things every day, but they don't get things named after them. I think this just gets a little carried away, so I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. Next speaker is Supervisor Shorsey, followed by Supervisor Bender. Please go ahead, Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will get on my soapbox again about the fact that we have never had a discussion, nor do we have a policy regarding naming. And once something is named, it takes away opportunities that can actually help alleviate taxpayers. And again, nothing against Jerry, nothing against the idea, but it's a
We are not in a position, in my opinion, and my years of experience with naming things, to make a decision about naming it for a board supervisor. So I will be voting no.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. Next speaker is Supervisor Bender. Please go ahead, Supervisor Bender.
I guess I'd just like to say that I think when a supervisor puts 30 years in, they earn the right to maybe have something named after them. I mean, we named Kenny Robo Park for him. You know, we got Nancy Barker's Rain Garden. It's amazing when you can put 30 years. I mean, I'm basically, this would be my 6th year, and I don't know if I'm going to run again. You know, it's a commitment. When you get on the committees, if you really want to do a good job, it takes time and effort. And Jerry put 30 years into this county board and the parks. He worked for that dog park. You know, he didn't give up. When we couldn't find no land, we looked at numerous pieces of land. He didn't say, oh, I'm going to give up. He kept looking, you know, and we got Supervisor Albright. I mean, when he retires, if we don't name something after him, I think it's sad. I think we should pass the resolution in the future that if you're a county board member with 30 years, because there's not many of us, that they should get something named after him. We got 4 pavilions in County Park. They got no names on them. We got a dog park in County Park. Don't have no name on it. What does it matter if it's Jerry Finch, Winnebago County Dog Park? You know, it's a name. If you want to name the dog park in County Park, name it. You want to name the 4 pavilions and find somebody we're looking to rebuild one. I would love to see somebody step up to the plate and put $500,000 so we could rebuild it. We'd be happy to name them after them, but we can't get people to come up with any money to build anything. But I think we owe them something for the 30 years that they gave this county. And if we can't basically name a dog park that didn't even cost $120,000 after Jerry Finch, I think it's pretty sad. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bender. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we're going to attempt to do this by a voice vote, but if there's any uncertainty, I'm going to go to a roll call vote. So, okay, so we'll do a voice vote, but if there's any uncertainty, we're going to move to a roll call. Okay? So all those in favor of establishing the official name of the new Winnebago County Dog Park located in the village of Fox Crossing to the Jerry Finch Winnebago County Dog Park, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay?
Nay.
We're going to do a roll call. I think it passed, but I want to make absolutely certain that all feel that the correct vote was tallied.
Konecki? Brunn?
Supervisor Brunn?
Can't tell what that was. Shake, no. Supervisor Borchert?
Aye.
Supervisor Eisen? Chairman Ramos?
Aye.
Supervisor Defferding? Yes. Supervisor Lenz?
Aye.
Supervisor Nussbaum? Aye. Supervisor Stafford? Aye. Supervisor Albrecht? No. Supervisor Gabbard? Supervisor Bender? Aye. Supervisor Conrad?
Nay.
Supervisor Shorsey?
No?
Supervisor Belante?
Aye.
Supervisor Gordon?
Aye.
Supervisor Wingren?
No?
Supervisor Lautenschlager? Aye. Supervisor Norton? Aye. Supervisor Zelmer?
Aye.
Supervisor Skellinger?
Aye.
Supervisor Buck?
Aye.
Supervisor Powers? Aye. Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Youngquist? Supervisor Youngquist?
Aye.
Supervisor Fari? Aye. Supervisor Rasmussen? Supervisor Keller? Supervisor Egan?
Aye.
Supervisor Ellis? Supervisor Snyder?
Aye.
Supervisor Jose? Three to nine.
And that motion carries 23 votes to 9 votes. So it officially will be called the Jerry Finch Winnebago County Dog Park. No matter how you voted on it, you certainly have to respect the effort and tenacity put in. I certainly actually respect the individuals who had uncertainty. Even though I voted for it, I understand some of those arguments, but you have to certainly acknowledge the efforts that Jerry Finch put towards a dog park in the northern end of the county. That's unquestioned. I think we can all agree. So, Supervisor Powers? If we could please open up the mic for Supervisor
Hi.
Powers?
Before the meeting, I kind of roamed around with my copy. If anybody would like to sign the resolution on any place on the paper, I'm going to give it to Jerry next month.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Supervisor Norton?
I just wanted to add that I think Adam's still here, the Parks Director. We are thinking of having a soft opening in the next couple of weeks, so be on alert for that. Tentative date is a couple of weeks from now. It's not set, so be on the lookout for a soft opening of the park, dog park.
Thank you. Executive Damo? So we could open up the
There we
mic.
go. We moved on from the redistricting resolution pretty quick, and I did want to take the time to thank you all for the discussions and getting it done. And it's commendable with the timeline that we had to face. I'm going to be honest, I didn't know if we were going to hit it or not. And I want to thank you all for sticking to it and making a decision and making that happen and giving our municipalities the most amount of time for them to get their wards drawn. So I really wanted to thank you for that. And also with Jerry Finch Park, I do agree that we need to have standards in place. Supervisor Shorzy is exactly correct on that, and I think 30 years would handle that standard. And I do plan on signing this thing publicly at the dog park, and I'll send an email out, and I'll invite all of you to show up as well.
Thank you, Executive Damo. I too, after we did the redistricting, I realized afterward I wanted to make sure we thanked, and unfortunately they're not here, but nonetheless the planning department for all their efforts. They left earlier, and I certainly don't blame them with all the work and effort they've done on this redistricting process. But nonetheless, the entire planning department, I know Director Jerry Bougie was there, Diane Culver was there, and I believe Adam Dorn was there. And I know there's others involved too, but they deserve a lot of credit for all their work, and certainly you all and the public for all their input. So truly want to thank you for the process and for all you did throughout it. So yeah, congratulations and a round of applause for everybody, frankly, for that process. And finally, I want to thank, again, I've thanked every time at this venue, but I want to thank Lighthouse Productions for being here. I want to thank Facilities for setting us up. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department for being here. I want to thank the County Clerk for all efforts as well, organizing this, and certainly the Parks Department as well. So, and Dia, yeah, thank you. And Dia and IT for all their efforts with these meetings as well. So certainly greatly appreciated. So with that, I will entertain a motion from Supervisor Albrecht to adjourn to October 19th. Supervisor Albrecht? There's a motion and a second that we adjourn until October 19th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. All have a safe evening.